Family, how's everybody doing? Welcome back to the Lion's Den. Again, welcome David the Syriac making his debut on the Lion's Den. Thank you for coming on, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Happy to be on.
Awesome. So this is going to be an interesting stream on the true tradition and what our fathers have to say about where truth is, where it's not, these kinds of things. This is not my neck of the woods, but I'm going to learn a lot from this. So this is exciting for me.
This is a topic, it begs a lot of attention, really. It's something we ought to talk about. It's something a lot of people presuppose as they're looking for the one true church. I think it's very good to sit down and talk about, in the eyes of our tradition, specifically what constitutes truth. What do we look for truth? What are the marks of truth, etc.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody is inquiring, in your guys' opinions, what should be what they're looking for to start off with? What is it? Because I think there are obvious indications of things that shouldn't be. Like, for example, whether if a church is the biggest, or if a church is the smallest, or if a church is, some kind of imperial romanticism to bring back like a dead empire, things like that. So what are some things that they should be looking for that are indicators of where the true church is?
Yeah. First thing, let's start very prima facie, step one, scripture. First of all, we know, according to the scripture, when we want to test the spirits of God, so this is very generic. We're not on the institutional level, who has the right apostolic succession. Let's start very generic. Mm-hmm. Whoever divides Christ, as it said in the Vulgate and the early fathers, is not of God. The way it's read in most translations is, whoever confesses Christ come in the flesh is of God. Whoever denies this is not of God. So the very outset foundation is Christology, whether you like it or not. And this was maintained even in the ante-Nicene period, before Nicaea. Before Nicaea, during the whole rebaptism controversy, when they were figuring out who do we receive by chrism, who do I have to rebaptize totally all of a sudden, and specifically in my tradition, Dionysius of Alexandria was clear. Anybody with any Christological heresy, you're not a Christian. And it was all types of Christological heresies. Some people went full, division. Other people rejected the human nature, etc. So we know whoever confesses Christ in the flesh is of God. Now I want to give it to David. I want to see what David thinks about this, because there's some other things I want to add to that.
Okay. And David, feel free if you want to, do any, pick our brains on anything, any questions, whatever you want.
Yeah, but I agree with Agent. Like the Christology, if you add this stuff to it and you change it with time, like the Nicene Creed, it was accepted that you shouldn't change anything to it. But then later on, the Roman Catholic Church added the Filioque, which you can see it's not coherent with the early church fathers.
Yeah, that's a good point. So again, you mentioned the Vulgate. The Vulgate uses the word divides in that verse.
It uses the word dissolve.
John.
So
okay,
1 John, yes. Yeah. If you read Irenaeus, when he's talking about the Gnostics, you find the word divide. When you read Clement of Alexandria, fragment on the epistles of John, he uses the word divide. When you read Presbyter Anastasius in Socrates Scholasticus' history, he talks about 1 John. He says, people were so fed up with the idea that Christ is no longer two but one that they kind of like remove the word divide from some of their manuscripts. Now, regardless, let's assume the text really never said divide. The patristic consensus is that this is about division. He says, whoever confesses Christ has come in the flesh is of God. Whoever denies this is not of God. So right off the get-go, the first foundation cornerstone to begin any examination, who is from God? Do they uphold the incarnation? And what is meant by the incarnation even further than that? Can you have the incarnation in different models? And to that, I want to kind of shed light on David's point. David made a very important point on creedal unity, creedal understanding. With the Nicene Creed, there's a very awkward point in Christian history where there was a group of people on the planet who agreed with the Nicene Creed as we have it. They didn't reject a sentence. They didn't reject a word. They rejected a letter. And that's it. The creed is the same as it was, with the addition of one letter. It's the homoousios part. We say of one essence, homoousios. They added the semi-aryans, homoiousios. That's it. Yeah. One letter added to the creed. And think of the genuine change of faith. This one letter altered everything. If Christ is not of the same substance, if he's just of a mere similar substance, what does that make him? What does that make him in light of me? What does that make him in light of the Father, etc.? It changes the faith completely. The creeds that we have, the faith that we have deposited, like think about the phrase one nature after the union versus two natures after the union. That's more than a letter. So if the Fathers made such a big deal on this one letter, so as people were considered quote unquote graceless, churchless, how can we just, desecrate the faith that we've been handed over? So creeds are very important. Early church consensus is very important. Subdeacon David, anything you want to add on that?
I want to say about when we're talking about, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, let's say the other side is listening to the point that you're making about the Vulgate and division and the patristic tradition interpreting that verse. Well, what if they say, well, that we're not dividing, so we're still within the patristic boundaries?
Okay, couple things to say on that. I don't want to get too technical because it's a very broad subject today we want to discuss.
Yeah.
I recently made a video kind of to address this topic where I was going through this 2 letters to Zexensis. So it was 2 letters written to Cyril and 2 from Cyril. And this was the exact question. He's saying, look, Cyril, should we say one nature or 2 natures? So Cyril says, you asked me about one nature or 2 natures, I'll say one nature because we don't want to separate or divide the natures. Kind of like what I'm saying right now. And Zexensis had the very same kind of hesitancy as you, Subdeacon. And it's very fair. He said, okay, that's awesome. You want to say one nature because there's not separation. Well, the people I'm talking to who are saying 2 natures say there's no division or no separation. So now what? What do you say now? You agree with them now, Cyril? So Cyril said, you misunderstand the point. Whether they say no division, they're still dividing if they're counting 2. If they're speaking of 2 after the union, even if it's inseparably, they're just trying to trick you. The statement of 2 is itself division. And you find this back in the New Testament to reiterate my point on beginning any outlook with the scriptures. Jesus says about marriage, the man and the woman become one flesh. And he doesn't say they become one flesh and remain 2 in kumbaya. No, he says they are no longer 2, but 1. And had he ended it there, perhaps the Chalcedonians would be able to sleep at night. But it continued. He said, do not separate what God has joined together. So he's applying a general axiom and applying a very specific type of understanding of what division is. In the minds of the incarnate God himself, speaking of 2 after the union is separation. And that's not my imposition on the text. He's appealing to the general logic of the listeners when he appeals to this marriage sequence. He doesn't just say, in this specific case, they're no longer 2 but 1. No, he cites Genesis chapter 2 when he talks about marriage, and then appeals to the audience. Can you separate what God has joined together? So this proves counting two is division and separation in the eyes of Christ. Even in the eyes of the New Testament further, when St. Paul speaks of the Jews and the Greeks, he says in Ephesians 2 that Christ made one new man from the two. He broke the middle wall of separation and made both one.
Mhm.
What does that mean for St. Paul? What is separation now? Separation is the status of both, and non-separation is the status of one. So if one is the breaker of separation, two is the affirmation of separation, what happens when we apply this to Christ? And it goes further. If you look at the scripture in the book of Ephesians, St. Paul mentions the same marriage passage as Christ. And he says, this is a great mystery. The Greek is mysterion.
Mm.
But I speak. And then he explains how he wants to apply it. So this proves this verse has many applications. And the application Paul uses in the book of Ephesians is Christ and his church. They are no longer two, but one. But one of the names of the church is what? The body of Christ. So if Christ and his spiritual body are no longer two, but one, how much more his physical body? If the Jews and the Gentiles are no longer two, but one, how much more Christ and his humanity?
So David and I were speaking, it was a few days ago. We're talking about Christology. So again, this isn't a Christological stream, but it is an indication of where truth is. It's one of the ways to know where the truth is. Like, you know, the other claimants of Christendom, no one is Miaphysite. We're the only Miaphysite body within the Christian umbrella in the world. So everyone else is Diophysite. Now, David and I were speaking. How would you explain to the layman when we say Christ is one incarnate nature from two natures? The divinity does not become humanity, nor does the humanity become divinity. They remain what they are, but they are one at the same time. So how could you explain that?
David, do you have anything you want to say on this?
No, I'm thinking yes, asking you, Adrian, because me and Daniel had that discussion.
Okay. So I want to first off confirm the point Subdeacon Daniel made. We are the only church that's Miaphysite, and I think God made it that way for a reason. And this is not my words. Well, a lot of it is going to be my words, but it's mainly built on the Council of Ephesus in the year 431. A homily was delivered by St. Theodotus. And this is a very important homily because St. John Cassian, who's in the West, makes the same point. He says, let's look back when the church was first established. What happened in Caesarea Philippi when Christ made the promise of the church? He said to the apostles, who do men say that I am? That's an identity statement. But more than that, he says, who do men say I, the Son of Man, am? So he's saying, you see this man before you, the Son of Man before you. When people see me doing X, Y, and Z throughout my ministry, what do they think of me? So the apostles say Elijah, one of the prophets, that's what they're saying of you. And then Peter makes the confession, you are Christ, the Son of the living God. So St. Theodotus says, this is a confession of the one who cannot be divided into two. The visible one before him, he had the audacity to say, is the Son of God. So St. Theodotus's whole point, the confession of faith, the rock of faith, which is a statement found in so many fathers. It's found even in liturgies East and West. The confession of faith, the rock of faith, was the idea that Christ is one. The flesh they saw before them was truly the Son of God. So really to divide into two, we're not just picking Miaphysitism because that's our special doctrine that separates us from the world. It's because God preserved us to have this special doctrine in isolation. Because it really is, and this is going to sound very polemical, but this isn't my words. This was the words of St. Theodotus. The teaching that Christ is one and is no longer two is the rock on which the church is built. It's the rock on which the episcopacy is founded. It's the rock on which all the bishops have a singular unity. all the believers have a singular unity, all partake of one body, all partake of one cup, etc. Everything about the Christian faith is one, and furthermore, the rock on which the church is built has to be one, and it's a confession of him who is one, no longer divided into two. So that, I want to address that first part, because someone in the audience might say, look, they're going to try and hand wave us. They're always talking about Christology, you know. It's like talking about the filioque. It's not that big of a deal. It's a semantical thing. No, this is the foundation, literally the foundation of the faith. I'm not speaking symbolically, literally. When the church was founded on the rock is Christ. And if Christ is two, your church has no correct foundation. Have you ever tried to build a building with two different foundations, completely divided and separate from each other? It doesn't work. You start in one spot, and all the weight is built on this one. That's the first part. Second part, when we say one nature, how can we, I don't know how you worded it, but divinity, humanity, they're not the same, but they're one. Can you elaborate the question again?
Yeah. So the divinity and the humanity in the union, they don't become each other, or they don't mix into something else. They remain what they are. So how are they one when they're still distinct?
Very good question. In philosophy, and this is a very easy concept to grab hold of, there's the idea of counting by identity, counting by division. So even all of our opponents will concede counting by division is a proper way of counting. It's basically when you have two things that are inseparable, you have to count them as one. Whereas counting by identity is if any two things are distinct, whether you like it or not, they're two. Mm-hmm. And that gets really problematic. It can get very in-depth. That's not what this stream is for, but in simple terms, composition breaks duality and preserves distinction. Think of the man before me, any man, Subdeacon Daniel, for example. Right now, I see a body, but I'm not merely talking to a body. He's animate, he's living, he's rational. So am I talking to a soul now? Am I talking to two things? No, I'm talking to one who is from out of two, but he bears the properties of both, and he preserves them in a synthesis and a composition. So two things can be one by indivisibility. When two things are so inseparable, you count them as one unit, one entity, one element. Counting by identity is not what we do in Christology, because in Christology, if we're just merely to count by a distinction between two things, well, there's no longer two substances that have their own properties for us. It's now one who has all the properties. So there's one indivisible thing we're counting. Flesh does not renounce its existence as flesh. Godhead does not renounce its existence as Godhead. But because the two are one, we speak of the one having the properties of both.
Got it. Okay. And in this way, we can say God died according to the flesh, while keeping the fact that it was God Himself, but dying according to his humanity.
Absolutely. He suffered in the flesh was a chief term used after Ephesus to combat the Cilicians. It was used during the Formula of Reunion, used during the 12 Anathemas. It's an important part of our Christology. And Mark the Ascetic makes a good point. He did X in the flesh. He never said, the scripture never said the flesh did X. So Christ, we say the word did this through his flesh. What does that mean? It means in the mind, we're speaking of the word, we're speaking of the flesh. In reality, they are one. So that he is the one incarnate nature of the word. But we want to emphasize whenever he does any task or suffers in any certain way that's human, he has this property because the one has a flesh in the system of composition. When the word and the flesh compose the one, we're able in the mind to explain he did this according to the flesh. He has this property because he's composed of the flesh. He has this property because he's composed of God the Word. So this is an exercise of katapanoia, as Cyril and the Fathers say, and entheoria. It's where we sever the distinction in the mind to speak of two different things, but recognize simultaneously that they are one. So we say Christ did this in the flesh, but the scripture never says the flesh did this. Leo, on the other hand, takes it very a step further. Says the word performs what belongs to the word, the flesh performs what belongs to the flesh. The one performs brilliant miracles, the other sustains acts of violence. This is too far. This was never said in the eyes of the fathers.
That's blasphemy.
Certainly.
Blasphemy. Because if I play devil's advocate now, let's say the Muslims, their argument that they say we worship a man, right? This gives them some type of leverage for that. If you say that he has two natures, who walked on water? Was it the human nature or the divine nature? Who died on the cross? If it was not God who died, if it was the human nature who died, where's the sacrifice? Where's our salvation?
Absolutely. That's why you have right after Chalcedon, people in the West, and believe this or not, I can give you the citation. They basically said things along the line of, and you find St. Ildefonsus, Isidore of Seville, etc. They say things like, only the man bore the cross. Only the man bore the cross, but it is said that God bore the cross on account of unity of person and name. Welcome back, Theodore of Mopsuestia. What are they saying that's different from the historical Antiochian school of Nestorians? Not the whole Antiochian school. We've talked a lot about that on streams. But Theodore, eventually coming down Nestorius, Theodoret. Identical statement, if not worse. I mean, sometimes I find straight up the Nestorian saying God died, period. Sometimes I find Theopascite statements greater than this. But then you have the West going completely... forgive my terms, ballistic. What are you talking about? Only the man died, but it is said that God bore the cross on account of unity of name and person. What are you talking about? This is absolutely heretical. And to take it a step further, to confirm your point, David, if they count two natures, they either worship the one and do not worship the other, or worship both. Aquinas tried to do the first option. Aquinas says in his Summa, he says, we give latria to the divinity, but the flesh gets hyperdulia. In other words, the divinity we're going to give worship, the body we're going to venerate super highly. You're going to get high veneration, but we're not going to worship. That's crazy. Many Catholics I've spoken to find that crazy.
So let's step one step further then. The Trinity. Where's the human nature in the Trinity then?
Exactly. Either you have to say there exist two essences in the Godhead, which is a very weird type of statement, or you have to say there's four pneume, four particulars in God, four individual things in God, which is very bad to say.
Exactly. We had that discussion, Daniel, about the four pneume and the Trinity, which makes no sense.
Right.
Yes.
Our friend Salib, he always makes the point that they have four hypostases in their Trinity. We have a super chat from Rabbi Shamul. God bless you. A good friend of mine, Aditya, I don't know if you've interacted with him, Agan. He's very supportive of our cause. It's been like that for a while. He sends me stuff all the time, like supporting our side, and he's Byzantine Catholic though. And it's just interesting. It seems like he holds what we're saying. I don't know. What do you comment on that?
I'm Catholic. I accept Cyril's Miaphysitism. It'd be heretical to accept Ephesus while opposing Miaphysitism. This actually is kind of ironic. I've received that statement many times. I've received it in different wavelengths.
Right.
Yeah. One of the extremes I've heard is I really hope the Catholic Church figures out its error and reverts back to Miaphysitism and gets rid of the Diophysite statement. I mean, crazy. I don't know how you can say that with a straight face, but I'll say this.
Like Leo.
It's kind of like yes, like Leo. You also find our fathers were commenting on what's his name, Flavian. Flavian tried to pull a sneaky move like that to the emperor, where he was like, you can say one nature of the word, comma, incarnate. I'll let it slide. And our saints were very hesitant in saying, look, this guy is two-faced. You can't do that according to your tradition.
Wow.
But according to the Catholic faith, you have to accept the tome as one of the first quote unquote ex cathedra documents. And all the lists I've seen, it's there. The tome of Leo specifically appeals to the Home Synod when Eutychus said that there's one nature, but he also confirmed a double consubstantiality. And Eutychus, Leo says about Eutychus, hey, Eutychus, you might have tried to retract. You might have tried, but you still didn't condemn your heresy. So what does that prove? In the eyes of Leo, speaking of one nature, period, was the heresy. It wasn't rejecting double consubstantiality. He said, even though Eutychus tried to affirm double consubstantiality, he still didn't reject his heresy. So this proves, according to the Catholic faith, Leo specifically thought that one nature of the word incarnate was incompatible. He says that word for word. One incarnate nature of the word is a heresy. It's wrong to say.
Right.
So as a Catholic, you can try. I much rather you do, actually. But to be consistent with your Catholic faith and tradition, you can't.
Yeah.
And let me put the quote because someone sent $2. This is from Fulgentius, and I'll give you another one. Or sorry, this is from Isidore of Seville. I'll give you one from Fulgentius. On account of the unity of person, he is called God who bore it. And I'll give you also, if you want to pin that, sub, you can also get one from Fulgentius. Let's see.
Yeah. So Isidore, for anyone who doesn't know, Isidore supported the 3 chapters and defended them. That tells you about his Christology. And he's canonized in both the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholic churches.
Yep. It's repeated again. Isidore Fulgentius make the same comment that the Son of God died by reason of the flesh to have risen again according to his divinity. And then further on, only the flesh died. But because of the unity of divine person and name, the Son of God is said to have died. So it's this Theodorian idea of relation.
Yeah.
The flesh did it alone by himself on the cross, being born. But it's okay. We'll say God did it. Why? Because he's inside of the man who's born and he's inside of the man who suffers.
Right.
But the thing is, then, with the Eastern Orthodox, they say they're Orthodox, right? We have the 12 anathemas that are essential for Orthodoxy. But how come that they say that they agree with them when they actually don't? Like, isn't that a hypocrisy at its finest?
Yeah. They don't
Because
know what to start thinking.
Yeah, it's they have conflicting traditions. They have to try to reconcile. It's like lawyers. It's like a church of lawyers, and they're trying to find a way to make things fit.
And what makes them Eastern when we are the ones in the East?
Yeah, just because they're
Icons, empire, etc.
Is it because it's east of Rome?
Yeah, probably.
So there's actually a branch of the Catholic Church then?
Yeah, so Rome tried when our break with Rome happened, when the 2 sides broke from each other. Rome tried to replace us by creating them. They're the Eastern Catholics.
I swear I was call them Eastern Catholics. Even all those Jay Fryer or whatever his name is, and all those characters on X, they refuse to debate me. Whatever I do, they say, "Hey, yeah, let's go, let's do a debate." You saw he hopped off the space immediately. As soon as he saw me, he hopped off the space. If any Eastern Orthodox want to debate at any given time, I'll do it. Face to face, YouTube, you name it, on any platform.
Never do it. No, don't bother asking. My voice is getting tired from the same. The Lord have mercy on them.
I mean,
yeah, it's crazy.
So, okay, we talked about the Christological indication of where the true church is and the true apostolic tradition. Like, that is one indicator, because Oriental Orthodoxy is the only Miaphysite church in the world. Everyone else is Diaphysite. So then, what is another thing? What are other indicators of the true apostolic tradition? How can we identify the true church besides Christology?
Good question. What sets us in common with all the churches are still marks of the church, or the apostolic churches. So the Assyrians, the Eastern Orthodox, quote unquote, Catholics, the Roman Catholics as well.
Yeah.
So what we have in common are marks to set us apart from a lot of Protestants, right? Apostolic succession, having a see where the apostles sat, being able to have being able to bring about canons, being able to have sacraments, having rites of the church, etc. These are particular indicators of the institution of the apostles. We also know this will kind of say what the church isn't. A lot of people assume if your church was the biggest in spreading Christianity, or the biggest just period in population, you must be true. But we find quite the opposite. This can be used as an argument to prove kind of our church, but mainly refute this argument. Christ says in the Gospel of Luke, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? So this means up until the end times, from now until who knows, maybe tomorrow, maybe after tomorrow, you cannot find you can't find the Roman Catholic institution where everyone believes in the same thing. You can't come and find the Protestant beliefs. He has to come and find a flock which is little in their mass populace. He can't find faith on the earth. Where is it? Where is it? It's been reduced to nothing almost. This is what Christ said when he comes. So can he come tomorrow and Roman Catholic be the true church? No. He could come tomorrow and we would be the true church. It would work in that sense. Why? Because we're a little group. We've been professing the same faith of Ephesus. Even people are starting to admit it. The guy in the comments said, I like Miaphysitism. Roman Catholics I speak to say Ephesus taught Miaphysitism. It's clear now. It's explicit. We teach one nature. We've been teaching one nature. And that's a criteria of what sets our faith apart. And Christ says the Son of Man will come and he won't find faith. He's not going to find it. It's going to be a very tiny group. It's going to be a remnant, kind of like Israel.
That's amazing.
So that's what the church. That's what the church isn't. It's not a big institution where everyone has the same faith. That's not what the church is.
Yeah, I like what you did there, because people use our numbers usually against us, even though like 100 million isn't small, but people use our numbers against us. But you just used our numbers to show that actually validates us, to show we're true. He says, broad is the way and many enter through it that leads to destruction, but narrow is the way and few enter through it that leads to life. Great point.
Yeah. Welcome. And think also,
Brother Pierre.
Welcome, Pierre.
Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you. Thanks. Pleasure to be on.
Go ahead, Egan.
Yeah. So think also about, and I keep having to go into Miaphysitism, but it's not merely because it's just our doctrine, you know. There's a very important part to it as well. We're told that the church is the pillar and ground of truth. So you should expect whatever institution exists is not going to be some Protestant invisible church where everyone's saying different stuff. It has to be a visible, authoritative pillar of truth. It's something you have to go to whenever there's a dispute. For example, Christ says, you know, if there's a problem between you and your brother, tell it between each other. Then you get 2 or 3 witnesses. The final thing he says is, take it to the church. So doctrines are important. Finding the institution which preserve the correct doctrine, specifically the apostolic ones, is important. Think about the word orthodox. Ortho means straight, and dox refers to our teachings at a whole. It's the straight way, the straight path, the straight position, and that's what orthodoxy is. Think of the word orthodontist. Straight has to do with the straightening of your teeth. Same applies for orthodox. We're a straight, unbroken, continuous chain to this pillar and ground of truth, manifesting it nowadays. Now, someone might come and say, and I've gotten this a lot. People recognize the truth in our system, recognize the truth in our church. Well, if you guys were right all along? I got this, I was talking to Redeem Zoomer. Talking to Redeem Zoomer. He's like, you know, Egan, I don't really have any arguments against your church. All the arguments you make are right. If there was one true church, it would be you guys. But he told me straight up, and I think it was implicitly, you guys are just small. Like, when I look at this, do I see the church Christ established for the salvation of everyone? I get it. I'm empathetic to it. But people really misunderstand what the church is. The church is a reflection of what? It's the new Eden.
The Ark of Noah.
In Eden, Ark of Noah as well. How many people were on the ark? 8. How many people were in the garden? 2. But what you find importantly, in both cases, he gave the option, you're in or you're out. He didn't force anyone. You want to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Have at it. Can someone say, is this really a garden from God if no one's in it? Is this really a garden God established if as soon as two people were in there, they dipped? Is it really the ark that God commanded if 8 people out of the whole human population went in? There's a reason the fathers use this typology. The ark, the garden, many things. Even the church is synonymous to those 12. 12. The church started with 12. And you're mad that our church is quote unquote small? You're mad that our church is quote unquote ethnic? Think about the blessings the first century Christians had when they're coming from Greek philosophy and Stoic systems and Epicurean models and Aristotelian models and Platonic models, and they offer to demons. And all of a sudden, the Jews they've been subjugating for centuries, all of a sudden, their religion has been the true one the whole time. I have to come convert and do your weird Jewish rituals with an altar and a priest. What do you think was going on in their mind? Oh, it's just an ethnic religion. I'll stay where I am. We have the tradition of the empire, wink, wink. We have the tradition of the kings, wink, wink. We have tradition of the philosophers, wink, wink. You think that's what they were thinking when they saw the first century church?
That's not Christianity then. Because if he makes this argument that he made about the popularity, like we are small, okay, then the most popular person would be the priest or the bishop or the pope, right? That's the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. Sorry, Agent, for interrupting you, but...
No, absolutely. That's you're absolutely correct. When Christ is supposed to be the church, when Christ is supposed to be the pillar and rock on which the church is built, when St. Paul says there is no other foundation than Christ himself, if you've got the idea of Christ wrong, you think you're in the church? You think there's just an invisible body? What does that say about Christ's true human nature? What does that say when the church fathers fought against Adocitus? Said the exact same things about his literal human nature. It's just an invisible body. You think so? Sabdika, I want to give it back to you because I went on a very random tangent, but I thought it would be necessary repping all the points we made.
Yeah, it's okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, brother.
The title of this, who holds the true apostolic tradition, Syriac and Coptic deep dive. It brought instantly a question to my mind for Agin, for Shomosho. What do you guys think of Isaiah 19, the prophecy in Isaiah 19? If you know what I'm referring to.
So, Saint Jacob Bar Salibi and Saint Severus, they both apply it to the communion between Alexandria and Antioch. Isaiah 19, 23 to 25, I think it is. This is applied in Oriental Orthodoxy, but obviously, if we're talking, and both of the saints I just mentioned are post Chalcedon, but it's true from the moment of the conversion of the Copts and the Syriac. When these peoples converted to Christianity, this prophecy became true, and it continues till today. We are still in communion because it's biblical prophecy.
I can give proof of this.
Go for it, brother.
Saint Augustine, writing against the Donatists. This is a Western issue. Alexandria wasn't involved mainly. It was mainly in the West. The two main prolific writers are Optatus and Augustine. And Augustine cites this prophecy, and I'll read this word for word. I can send in the chat. The prophet Isaiah says this about Egypt. In that day, there will be an altar of the Lord in the land of the Egyptians. St. Augustine continues saying, what do they, the members of the Donatist sect, say to this? Why do they not share with the church what was foretold of the Egyptians? Or, if Egypt signifies the world by prophetic prefiguration, why are they not in communion with the church of the world? This is a title we've had for centuries now. Augustine is pointing out you Western schismatics who set up an anti-pope in Rome. This is a Western issue. Cites Isaiah 19. He says, if even the world is signified by the conversion of Egypt, why are the Donatists not in communion with Alexandria? Why are they not in communion with the church of the world? So we've been maintaining this prophecy as an evidence pre-schism, post-schism, it's an indication that he didn't say, you know, all the nations will eventually come to me, although that's found many places where he talks about the restoration of Israel, etc. But when you read the Old Testament, the Psalms say princes or people will come from Egypt. The Ethiopians will raise their hands to God. And this is a crazy one. Not a lot of people know. In interpreting Revelations and Daniel, the church fathers were in unanimous consent at the final hour, the very end of times. The saints in Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya will be persecuted by the Antichrist. Now, let me set up this type of argument. If we fell away and the church holds a rigorous view of what the church is, which they do, how could Christ say heretical schismatics are saints being persecuted in the end times? It's impossible. Libya was mainly Coptic before Islam. It still is. That's the biggest, yes, the Syrians. That's what's said in Jerome. It's said in Hippolytus. Libya still is the majority Christian faith there is Oriental Orthodox. Egypt, Oriental Orthodox. Ethiopia, Oriental Orthodox. And these three groups were the one that the Antichrist was going to go crazy on in the final hour. So this proves at least two things. I'll be generous. Either we were schismatics and union is imminent because you need us for this end time prophecy to work. You need us. Or we were never wrong at all. And it's more probable the latter.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Pierre, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've always found that prophecy to be interesting when applied to the church. I think often when we discuss it, sometimes there will be some people who are so easy to wave it off and say, well, this is referring to something that happened in the Old Testament, and it's not about that.
Yeah.
But it never happened. It never happened. We both know that these two states, Assyria, Egypt, despised each other. And then obviously it mentions in the third, it mentions Israel. Israel is the, living in perpetual fear of these two states. They're not worshiping together. But I think it goes to say, it says, Israel is my heritage, Isaiah says. I think it's saying, in this case, Israel, the church, not Israel, the physical nation, Israel, my heritage. It gives something, blessed is Assyria, my handiwork. We were the biggest missionaries at one point, the Syriac tradition. It's the reason why the Syriac tradition is all the way in India, all the way in India, and went all the way as far as China, right? And Egypt, blessed my people, blessed my people.
Yeah.
And, if I were Oriental Orthodox, I would say it's because the Coptic Church has remained perpetually consistent in their belief. If I was Oriental Orthodox, I would say that. Now, as a Church of the East person, I can't say that.
There are traditions, Egan, I'm not sure if you're aware of them. There are traditions I've seen. I'm not saying this is like de fide, I'm just saying there are obscure traditions that are old that have Alexandrian infallibility claims. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yes. I tend not to go there because that's too easy. It's too easy to prove our point. It's better to do the traditional route. Right. But yes, there's many ancient traditions, even modern ones, where Christ promises, and I kind of find this in comparison to like Roman supremacy. Rome puffs up these claims about itself, but the meek church over here that's been persecuted, there's not any ecclesiastical like infallibility pressed on it. It's the promise of Christ. Just because of how great they've been, Alexandria will never fall into heresy is one of the statements repeated. And the Virgin Mary appeared to a couple monks one time and said, because of the witness you guys have done to the Lord and all this martyrdom, you guys will never, ever, ever fall into heresy. And they never did. Whenever there was any like break of communions in the early church, Alexandria was always like in the middle of it. They were never on either end. They've been preserving the center of unity, which is the kind of the emphasis I've been pointing out. The rock, Christ, is oneness, the oneness of the priesthood, oneness of the bishops, etc.
Yeah. Well, I want to do, maybe me and you It doesn't even have to be live. There's a situation in the 6th century I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
Yeah.
With Peter and Damien.
No, that one too,
Okay.
but no, not that one. I was thinking the one where Severus. So Severus is in Constantinople.
Okay.
For the sponsored dialogue that Justinian did.
Yeah.
And our side in the debate is asked about Alexandria, because I guess in Alexandria at the time there was there was the on the floor papacy of Alexandria, and then there was the underground one. And there was a Christological dispute between the two, like the Julianists versus the Orthodox, something like that. So I wanted to see like the Coptic perspective on this.
Right. On any of the dialogue, we can get into whole stream on it. Yeah. There was a bunch of groups, both Severian and Alexandrian, who in a state of disillusionment with Justinian, like waiting for our patriarchs to go bye-bye so he can reordain people. There's a lot of disillusionment, so a lot of groups came out. But the church, I think the Coptic church has been consistent in doing multiple synods, kind of addressing the same with the Syriac church.
I just want to not to go on a tangent. Last thing I want to say about this, and then we'll move on. This is just, if you're Jordanian, you should be happy about this too. The Antichrist shall enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand: Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. This is Daniel 11:41. Jordanians love this verse.
Go to verse 43. Daniel 11:43. It says about the Antichrist, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Libya, the Syrians. So to emphasize the point I was making.
Okay. Thank you, Pierre, for that question. So we got to Christology, which is like a theological example. The size of the church, so something that's visible to everyone. What are some other indicators of how we are able to identify the true church?
I think
there's a clear one. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the mark of persecution. I think it's very easy. You know, we see Eastern Orthodox prelates come and talk to Americans and say, "We're the martyred church. You know, we're the church that has suffered the most from. You know, we're the one dealing with the Muslims and the pagans. You know, it's us." And I often think about that, and I say, "Wow! I mean, you've completely ignored the entire history of the East." Entirely ignored it. The real people who suffered and yet preserved the faith through all of this. You know, we talked about this in a Twitter space a couple days ago when we said, or maybe it was yesterday, the Eastern Orthodox are not Eastern because they exist in the Balkans and Russia that's this sort of Slavic areas that's their area in Greece, right? But east of that, there's this whole other tradition of Christianity, the true church, who suffered on behalf of the faith, perpetually, is still suffering to this day.
Yeah.
And perfect that you said persecution. Let's look at the Eastern Orthodox Church. Why did they persecute Oriental Orthodox? And it wasn't the other way around. If we truly follow Christ, who suffered, who did not persecute anyone, you look at the Byzantine Empire and the Eastern Orthodox, they persecuted our people continuously. Just like, not as bad as the Muslims, but in a sense, yes, they did. Why? How come? If they're Christian attacking other Christians who they agreed with until Chalcedon, which makes no sense.
Yeah. Who knows, if they had 1400 years to persecute us, then it would be a comparison. The Muslims, 1400 years persecution. These guys, I think 200 years, something like that. No, less, 150 years like this.
And they had empires backing them. What did our churches have?
Yeah,
people who believed in, who stood fast on the ground because of the faith. That's it.
The faith.
Yeah, that's what's all they had.
Right.
I found a lot of kind of simplicity in Abuna Lazarus' statements. He's been on a lot of podcasts recently. He's been very great. And he said about the Oriental Orthodox Church, it's the church who loves Jesus Christ. I like that nickname a lot. This is a perfect segue from Christology into literally everything else. If Christ is one with his body, the church, literally, and also his body, you should expect the church should be a perfect one-to-one reflection as him in everything, all doctrines, even the very high-depth philosophical ones. Let's think about like theosis, for example. You go to the East, they're looking down at their belly buttons, doing breathing exercises until they start seeing light. You know, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, sinner. That's their theosis. It's in levels. You got 3 stages for hesychasm. You get to the top, you get enlightened. Our theosis has always been a little different. It's been the total and perfect art of reflecting the person of Jesus Christ, the nature of Jesus Christ. Who was he? He was pretty poor. We're poor. He was persecuted. We're persecuted. When Christ said the truth, when he said the truth, he was persecuted even further. He was silent before the people trying to persecute him. He loved all of those around him. He washed their feet. He carried a cross. This is our theosis. It's accepting the humble state of Christ because he accepted our humble state. And that is a reflection of what you should look for in the church. Because think, if you were to just base it only off of creedal confession and canons and consensus patrum, if you did that, what does the gospel have to do with you? It shouldn't be one or the other. It should be both of them. The doctrinal, theological part, and more importantly, the application of the Christian life, the spiritual life. They should both be used to find the true marks of the church. Who resembles Christ the most is how you're going to find the church. So whichever institution, whoever it may be, whoever was shedding their blood at an enormous state is the Church of Christ. Whoever lived in poverty but was thankful is the Church of Christ. Whoever carried their cross has continued carrying their cross is the Church of Christ. And all of this combined with the doctrine we've preserved should be a very bright light for the world. Now, this is a controversial one, and I want to ask you, Subdeacon, do you think the apparition of Zeytoun, this is very off topic, but you'll kind of see how it's connected. And I want to get your opinion on this first. The apparition of Zeytoun, I've seen many people online, two-faced kind of. Well, it doesn't really prove any one church over the other. And then a week later, against atheists, why did she appear on a church which confesses Jesus is God? You've seen that two-face?
Yeah. So
what do you think about think about this idea of Mary on top of a church?
I believe that the apparition is an indicator. I think it's too easy, as you would say. It's a too easy thing. It's not the traditional route. But it's almost like what the enemies use against us with their fake stories. But this is a real one. And
yeah, right. One they admit.
Yeah, and everyone agrees that it's a real one. So and to me that's enough. That's enough for everybody to know, but it's okay. Like this apparition is attested to by even non-Christians, like the Muslims saw it with their eyes.
Yeah, non-believers, Muslims, atheists, a bunch, not just Christians.
People from the Vatican, people flying solely from America to see it and document it.
Right. I just honestly, I don't know what. Let's say you're a Protestant or something. If you're there, you're saying, well, what are you gonna say? Like, what do you do? You know, this is before like technology was that good. Like, what's the skepticism like that is remaining in you after that? Like that to me, that's a strong indicator.
Two things on that: the two groups who witnessed the miracle. The first generation skepticism was not denying the miracle. It was just denying who was it on the church. Was it, Iblis, Shaitan? That's what Muslims were telling their laity in Egypt.
Wow.
Protestants comforting each other in their evangelical circles. Saints are dead. It's just a light. It could be any angel. You have to see if they have the gospel, it's faith, and not works. That's what they do today. Even the Protestants today, nobody denies something was seen. They just argue who it was.
That's
To which
amazing.
I say, by this every spirit of God. We talked all about this, but here's one thing. Because to be fair, like you said, it's a very easy way. It's too easy almost.
Mhm.
I like a challenge. I'll give the benefit of the doubt. It proves two things. Both of them is a win-win for us.
Mhm.
We cannot be graceless at all. Whether we're not the one true church or there's some invisible church, maybe.
You have to admit
Obviously,
that we're not graceless. That's a good point. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If an Eastern Orthodox is knocking on my door, Elder Pakakahelatikos of Mount Athos, whatever they call them, their long names, Elder Tutitutus of Athos, he said you guys are graceless, which is like, at that point, when you have the Virgin on top of your church, standing on your church, why would she be standing over a graceless church? It doesn't click. So you have two options. Either we're the one true church, or we're a one true church.
Mhm.
Both of which you better get to Alexandria or your local Oriental Orthodox parish. It's the safest, epistemologically secured way to know you're in the church, because worst case scenario, we have valid sacraments. We're just wrong about the papacy. Let's grant that silliness for a second.
Let me ask you this. What, in your experience, because I haven't talked to them about it, in your experience, what do the Ortho bros say about Zeytoun?
They say it's a demon.
Oh,
Straight up.
got
They
it.
straight up, they say it's a demon, and they say, that's it. That's the main one. That's the main objection.
If it's a demon, doesn't that contradict their entire teachings? Because they base it off our churches. So if that's a demon that appeared there, and they have some apostolic like we have, like they have similar teachings as we have, then they're part of that demon club as well, then, right?
Well, they're
Right, if
saying
we have
their apparitions are valid, but ours are,
Right.
are demonic. That's
Yeah,
Right.
But
when
that's a
they
good
when they
point.
when they see a saint in their dream who's telling them, "Oh, I should be canonized," this is legitimate. Even though this person, I was Eastern Orthodox the entire time. He told me in the dream, let's just canonize him. Yeah, that's legitimate. But anything else, no.
Oh, that's
Paisius said it, dude.
Yeah, Pierre's talking
Um,
about Paisius.
That's similar to Muhammad's dream, right? Jibril came to him in a dream.
And
No, but I want to emphasize.
Pierre,
I want to emphasize David's point.
he got the year wrong for Chalcedon. Didn't he say Chalcedon was like the 4th century or something?
Yeah, he said 4th century.
Yeah.
I want to emphasize David's point. If we have 99% of the same apostolically, let's be generous and say 99% of the same apostolic teachings, right? If it really was a demon, the Eastern Orthodox Church reduces to absurdity. Imagine this. Imagine God grants a miraculous apparition to a church which confesses 99% of the same things as you, and he grants it, but it's fake. You have to read calendars to determine if Constantinople is in communion with Moscow, and you have to read more newspapers to determine how Ukraine fits into this whole situation. And after all of that, you got to see who got the right calendar. If that really is the method and marks of the church, believe me, it's not the God
I'd be very
who
concerned.
created this kind of system. Exactly, it's not a working system.
We got a super chat from Dave. How do we reconcile the EO claim that we don't have contemporary saints? Okay, so this is something that we've shown countless times. Like, we have so many modern saints. We've posted about it on Twitter. I don't know how many times we've posted about it. Myself, Philoxenos Sladib. I don't even know if that's still his handle. I don't remember. And a lot of the Oriental Orthodox folks on Twitter. Miki was the other one. All of them, like, they're all posting a long list of the modern Oriental Orthodox saints, much more than the EOs have. It's not even close, actually. So this is it's almost like they're projecting because they don't have any, and they're trying to make it like they have, and we don't have any. Ours, like, it's so long that it's like tiring. The thread is long from how many we have.
I wanted to say something on that without getting a little too personal. about my life, but I'll put it in a nice polemic way. If we never had saints, why would the Eastern Orthodox mock them? And I say this directed at a very specific group of people I know who, believe it or not, Subdeacon, this one guy posted some like Instagram reel or TikTok about Abu Nafanus, who's very contemporary, done many, many, many miracles to my family while he's alive. I'm not talking about, you know, my parents like wish for a new car and we finally were. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about him living miracles. And this one guy mocking this guy online, Abu Nafanus, and said, we have Paisios, you have a guy whose clothes had poop on him, which was like, when people saw Abu Nafanus in person, he had a very rugged, monastic, ascetic figure, not the cleanest guy. He's mocking
He lived the life of humility.
Yeah,
exactly. If we didn't have saints, who are they mocking? Nobody. They're mocking people whom they know are quote unquote a threat to their brain. It doesn't work in their system. If what I've been told about the calendar schism is true, everybody outside my little 10,000 member group has no grace. How do I explain these guys in Alexandria doing these miracles? Like I would not be doing any apologetics if not for the modern saints.
Jesus himself spoke against them when he said, "Who did you go out in the desert to see? A man in fine clothes?" What?
Exactly.
Like this is not the same religion. Like they're not seeing what we see. They don't believe in humility and love and forgiveness and mercy. Clearly not. This is not the same. That's not. I don't know what they have, but it's not Christianity.
They got a continuation, apostolic succession from the Pharisees. Literally. Yeah. Look at how they treat canonical disputes. Look how the ancient Pharisees treated any dispute in their position. It's identical polemics against us, identical polemics against themselves. It's continuation of following the law, following the Pharisaic tradition, hating Christ, believing a man died on the cross. The parallels go worse and worse to the point the early Jews, right after Chalcedon, loved Chalcedon. Finally, they're going to stop persecuting us. They said the same things as us. They said a man died on the cross.
Right.
I'm not kidding. This is in the primary sources.
Yeah, I was telling them in the spaces. I think Pierre and David were both in the space yesterday. I was going over the Jewish influence after that and how they appealed to the Roman government to exonerate them from deicide after Chalcedon. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So there's this Zeytoun. Do we want to get one more indicator for the recognition of where the true church is?
I say, go ahead, David. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
Like we didn't add anything extra. They added a bunch of things throughout the years, both the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholic Church, and they separated from each other. And then the Protestants came from the Catholic Church. Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense that that's the true apostolic church. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense because if you're just a bunch of branches for sub churches or sub cults or religions or whatever you want to call them, because now that I just found out that Eastern Orthodox aren't actually Eastern and they aren't even Orthodox, it doesn't make any sense. Well, we can speak out. Like you see how these dogs behave, these orthobros. I want to challenge each and every orthobro to any debate about anything, Christology, theology, you name it. I'm willing to debate them, and I'm willing to rage bait them. Of course, why not? Especially their cult leader. I call him out every day. He doesn't respond. He just blocks, and from different accounts, they just block me. These Mario Kart or Wario or whatever they call themselves, clown accounts.
Mario Kart, I like that.
You know, I think it's interesting to note the big difference between ortho bros and people who grew up like, you know, the common Greek, the average Greek Orthodox person. You know, we have
these Orthodox, when they attacked the 21 martyrs, said this could have been fabricated. The video when the 21 martyrs, the Coptic martyrs,
and that's
fabricated.
Wait. He posted it on Palm Sunday of all days. I told him, Abri, you're paid, chill. You're paid by someone to push a certain narrative. You're not even Christian. How can you do this on this day? He blocked me.
You know,
Yeah.
Adrian, I don't know if you know this. So when that comment, the Hezbollah martyrs, whatever, remember that comment?
Yeah.
Disgust.
So that
Yeah.
was David. That was David who was the back and forth with him. That it got famous. It was between Jay and David. That's
No.
what,
Yeah.
I think it was the red one guy with the Hezbollah when he said but his other accounts called them Coptic dogs.
Oof. Yeah, even David Erhan was like, we can say this, why? Because they deny Flavian, which is like symmetry breaker. Like I can list 10. I can point out 10 different differences with this and that. But regardless, even that is on this topic. Yeah. Even this is on this topic. Do they have any reason to deny it except the very obvious one? No. The very obvious reason is because it's cognitive dissonance. If this is televised, people getting their heads cut off for some monophysite faith, what does that say about their faith? What type of faith is it? When someone who could have left saw the faith on 20 men, he could have left. And he said, their God is my God. What they believe in, I believe in. And he dies with them. What does that say about what they believe in? Very specific. That's why they deny, and it's on this topic. But I want to talk about one more mark of the church, and this is a very broad one that encompasses both the spiritual and the theological, historical aspect. The Holy Spirit. That's a vague answer. What do you mean the Holy Spirit? What does that mean? For starters, that points out consistency, right? If you have the same Spirit in 325, in 381, in 431, but a different Spirit at 451, and there's no consistency, and then further on a different Spirit at 553, and then further on different spirits. If you have internal inconsistency, what does that say about the institution you're a part of? So it points out the consistency aspect. Number two, preservation aspect, which David has been very keen to point out on the stream, very correct about it. We're preserving the faith. So if you're preserving something held, the Spirit is involved. Third, love. Our church has loved more than any other institution on the face of the planet. The way we've been not just diplomats, because any church can shake hands and act nice when we meet. The immense love we've had for those who have persecuted us, we pray for those who persecute us, is a perfect mimicking of Christ. So the Spirit bears witness to that. The Spirit belonging to the martyrs, that's a signification of where the church is. The Spirit belonging to the sacraments. What do the sacraments affect how do they affect the laity, etc.? The Holy Spirit can be picked out by many things. Just read the New Testament, learn all about the person of the Holy Spirit, and apply it to figure out which church is the right one for you. And don't psych yourself out. Be completely open and you'll find the church very easily.
I love it. You guys have any comments on that?
Amazing, Agent. I completely agree with you. You're completely right. 100%.
Pierre, you want to add anything?
No comment for me on that.
Okay. I think this was.
I have a question. Like, how come we don't have Oriental Orthodox that does debates live like that Friar guy?
What?
Why don't we have a debater like those EOs? They have a bunch of people that talk and defend their faith or defend their rejected faith, I would say.
Egan's a debater.
Yeah.
You asked Shomosho this question before.
You're anonymous, my friend. I like your style. I like everything you say. I follow your YouTube channel. I watch you almost daily, but you're too anonymous, bro.
You want me to start on Twitter and disrespecting Flavian?
Obliterate them, bro. What? How can you even hesitate? Yes, of course. 100%.
Lord have mercy on them.
Obliterate
I
them,
think there's gonna be. I'm seeing it now. A lot of people, all from around the world, people not born in our church, are picking up the shield. I don't want to say sword. They're picking up the shield. They see this as a truth worth fighting for, and I think in the coming years we'll find many people that are gonna surpass me and Subdeacon and everyone. It's glory be to God. Many great people.
Yeah, I started this in 2019, doing this stuff online, and then very soon after, there's already a lot of guys came out, just like Oriental Orthodox blew me out of the water with their knowledge. I'm not even close to them. Like Dr. Joe Benchaco, Paul Ibrahim, Salib and Ican and Agan, all these guys. Like I can't touch them on a lot of things. They just come to me when they have historical questions. That's it.
And Subdeacon is the best for that. Thanks to Subdeacon.
But yeah, I think everyone should follow everyone's YouTube channel and all the platforms that you're on.
Oh, I forgot to shout out, just so nobody get. I forgot to shout out Thomas and Majd. Majd is in Sweden. I wanted to shout out both of them.
You forgot the broken mic, servant of Christ.
Yes, oh, UK servant of Christ, all those guys. Dionysius, he had like 40 names.
No, but how is it with these Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox? They don't want to do debates at all? Like they don't want to come forth? They want to talk in separate videos. I understand that, but they don't want to.
No, I had one debate with David Erhan. It was me, him, and Craig, the three of us only. It was a discussion. It was a discussion, not a debate. That's the only time ever. Kai, it was proposed to him to have a discussion with me. He rejected it.
Yeah, because you don't understand his paradigms, he said, and you deal too much in history, and we can't really talk about history.
Exactly. And with Agan, he tells him, you separate the paradigms from their historical context. With me, he says, oh no, you don't talk about paradigms, only history. Okay. So anyways, with Erhan, by the way, I've never had a personal problem with any of these people. Even they talk about me like Kai, he says Kakish clown clan or something like that.
The Kakish clown clan.
Yeah, that's
the KKK. He equivocates you with a racist American organization.
Okay. No problem. Erhan, Jadai, never had a problem with any of these guys. A personal problem, never. But Erhan, Sam proposed to him a second discussion with me on Sam's channel. He refused. And then I've spoken to Dyer one time on a space that has nothing to do with the theological debate. It was unrelated.
We should have them continuously, like forward in the future.
But they won't, because they refuse.
They won't. They reject it.
The reason,
but David,
the reason why they tell us is because they don't want us to get clouts, because they have a lot of. They have
what? You think we do this for fame?
They think that. So they have 200,000 or something, whatever they have, subscribers, whatever it is. So they don't want us to get subscribers or recognition from talking.
I don't even think it's to that extent. Like the whole past stream against Dyer and Kai, the whole stream was talking about Agan. There's name dropping Agan throughout the whole stream, the whole presentation. They're like main excuse at the end. It just, to me, I just figured it out. It's never gonna happen. They're just, and I'm not trying to be overtly mean. They're just terrified, and that's the first impression of anyone. Eastern Orthodox always come to me this, and I think they're scared, man. But whatever. Their new excuse now on the past stream, the very end of their stream, their concluding remarks. You guys want us to debate Agan? Agan's young. He hasn't been part of their community for a long time. So yeah, don't expect me to debate Agan.
Every few years, it's a new one. Severin Zealot or Paul Ibrahim or Agan.
Wait. How long has Jay been Eastern Orthodox? 10 years? 5 years? And he's going to talk about age? Yeah, like 10 years. He was
didn't he just have his chrismation?
Pierre, you were going to say something. You were going to say something. I cut you off. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, David, you brought up, like, why aren't they debating Roman Catholics? I don't think the issue is really with the Roman Catholics in this regard. Like, a lot of Roman Catholic scholars are a little bit more willing to examine the events of the 5th century and the councils, and admit wrongdoing. So it's really, there's not really a debate to be had there, I think.
Well, there is. Look at their Pope. When has he any time venerated anything but Christ? When has he done anything Christ-like? Any of them? Just name one event.
I think the Pope has done plenty of Christ-like things, including tried to bridge the gap between the churches. And I'm saying this as a non-Catholic. I really think he's tried to be an ecumenicist for sure, and that is something that comes from a place of humility. To go in, if you think it's so easy to say the Roman Catholic Church is the largest church in the world, we talked about how that's not a real marker of the faith, but he goes and he sits down and he has honest discussions with, whether it be the Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East or any of the churches. This has been a mark of the papacy for the past 40 years.
But that's not like they have to submit to him. It's like him recruiting churches to his.
No, actually, usually when they're having discussions together, it's pretty brotherly and fraternal in discussion. I mean, I'll speak about His Holiness Mardinka IV. I mean, this was a brotherly discussion between him and John Paul.
Bro, the end goal is to follow his papacy. That's it. That's the whole point.
Okay, let me ask you another question, David. So when Pope John Paul II got shot by a Turk, right? When he got shot by a Turk, and Pope John Paul II went and forgave him and sat with him and preached the love of Christ to him, is that unchristian? You said name one Christian thing that the papacy has done.
Okay, fantastic. But is that it? Yeah, that's it.
Where's your no, but you just said name one. So your argument, where is it now?
Listen, I've had this discussion with hardcore Roman Catholics.
You're strawmanning me into defending the papacy, and I'm going to do it.
It's about to turn into a debate, a formal debate.
I know. We'll move that.
Anyways, who's this Inwin? Inwin wants a debate.
An Armenian brother.
Okay, no. Okay.
Yeah. Guys. So, I think this was really good for indication of where truth is. I think we gave many points. Obviously we didn't go with the given ones like apostolic succession because there's a lot of claimants to it. Even though
I'm extremist. No, I'm not. I'm the most. Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm the most peaceful guy on Twitter, on X.
He is.
Yes.
So guys, with the apostolic succession, I just want to say real quick for that point, I already have a video on the lines then. I did with Dioscoros on the Patriarchate of Antioch and the succession that continues through it. So yes, there are the claimants, but there are more historical claims than others. And I think whoever is, obviously I'm Oriental Orthodox, but I'm saying this is in my opinion, this is the objective reading that it comes down to, rather than a Uniate branch or a Byzantine imposed one. This is the native succession in Antioch. No one even debates the Egyptian one. So the succession it continues till the present day. So we're saying one holy Catholic Apostolic Church, and the Catholicity is very apparent. I mean, we have the Giz Habasha Abyssinian tradition, the Armenian tradition, the Mesopotamian Syriac tradition, the Coptic tradition. This is all in communion together. It's diversity in communion, like the primitive church was. People like to make a big deal. Egan proves the point in the video for the size, but I also want to say, if you think about in the case of rites in communion, there are only two who are not, which is Greek and Latin. The Greek and Latins are not in communion with us. It's not about numbers of people. It's about the rites. So we preserve the majority of the rites in communion with each other. The true
Guess
rites,
what? Guess what, Subdeacon?
Romanized versions. No, the native original versions. Yeah.
You know how I was mentioning the prophecies of Ethiopia, Egypt, the Libyans? Isaiah has a prophecy, and Jerome commentates, Rome and Macedonia will aim themselves against the people of God who are in Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya. So you kind of have those two outlier rites. Even in the early church, they were outliers in a prophetic sense, in reference to the end times.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in Acts, I think all of us are mentioned, right? All the groups. I
It's
think,
why we picked the name Orient for Oriental Orthodox. It's because the apostles in Acts and onwards spread the faith in the Orient.
yeah, sure. And you're saying for the Western naming convention, we chose that translation.
Yes, exactly why at that synod, one of the main takeaways with you have Eastern Orthodox, you have Roman Catholic. Well, what are we going to call ourselves now? We've always been just Orthodox. Is going to cause confusion. So they're very clever. I really like the name Oriental Orthodox because it's like a sneaky way to point out our apostolic succession within the name. That when the apostles spread out the faith in the Orient, well, here we are. We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. Exactly. So I think we covered the points of the four marks of the church: Holy, Catholic, Apostolic. One holy, or one. We already did that. One holy, Catholic, and Apostolic. And then we've added others along the way.
And they're all to point out, they're all connected with one Holy Catholic Apostolic. So the Christology stuff has to do with the one. Persecution, apparitions has to do with the holy, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't. Look. There are people who would be inquiring into us, like you used the example of Redeemed Zoomer. Other people have told me the same thing. Well, you guys are what's preventing you from taking us seriously, or like having us as a serious option? Oh, you guys are too small, bro. Like 100 million is not small, and even if you're saying it's small in comparison, that's an indicator of truth, because it's persecuted. Like you want imperial victory and you international gain. Like this is exactly
Wrong religion.
This is why the Jews didn't recognize Jesus. It's the same reason. So it's the same reason you're not recognizing the church is the same reason the Jews didn't recognize Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an Islamic view to have on things. Like they say, oh, we are 2 billion, and they spread it by the sword, and that's how they got more people to follow their faith. It's not by the word. It's not by love.
Can I add one thing that Abuna Lazarus wanted me to emphasize on some of my content, and I will. And even I was hesitant, and I told him like I don't feel like if I say this, people will take me in a polemical fashion. This isn't my point. But one thing we always have to point out: we were persecuted by everyone at once. At once. If they were really the sons of Christ, why are they teaming up with these false religions to execute persecution on us? And we've never done anything like that. The other Abuna Lazarus, the famous monk in Alexandria, says the reason I think of this holy man, the reason I wanted to become Coptic was because they didn't have blood on their hands. They were always the ones being persecuted. And that is a significant mark. If the Byzantines are cutting off your left hand, while the Muslims are cutting off your tongue and your right hand, what does that say about the one who's being teared into shreds?
Exactly. And they still keep the humility. They're still humble. Exactly. They don't go around like the Jews, we're the chosen people. And you made a great point, Agent. Fantastic.
Okay, brothers. If you don't have anything else to add, we're gonna wrap it up here. I think that we covered all the points.
But wait. Where do you find all these people? I'm not sure if this is my first YouTube live stream. I will be hosting more, and I will specifically go for debates if they want to debate me. If not, I will post my videos. But okay,
I think I tagged David's channel in the description.
Listen, I'm David the Syriac on all platforms: Kick, Twitch, YouTube, X, you name it. Instagram, I'm there. It's always the same, David the Syriac. But I'm thinking about the other people.
What's that, David?
I'm thinking about the other, like Agent Pierre.
I tagged Agan's channel too, I think.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Everyone, be sure to subscribe to Subdeacon's channel. My channel is Apostolic Orthodoxy. A lot of people distinguish Agan from Apostolic Orthodoxy. I've seen that online. No, I'm the same person. I'm not too
Which
nature's.
country are you from? Where do you live, Agent? What country do you live in? At least
I
that-
live in the United States.
You're okay, American. All you three are American, right?
Yeah.
All right, amazing. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
That's
thanks
good.
again, guys. Thank you, Pierre, for coming up. Pierre, do you want to say
Wait. He put the best comment here. Barafi Simon. David has to upgrade. You're right. Luckily, you were right. I had to switch places to use my original mic. You're 100% right. I have to upgrade my Chalcedonian mic. Sure. Fantastic. All right.
Okay.
This,
Like, subscribe, share. Pierre, anything?
No. Thanks for inviting me on in the middle.
Yeah.
I woke up to watch it, and I was like, oh, you asked me if I wanted to join.
I have a stream coming up with Pierre in July. I think, what is it? What day did we say, Pierre?
Let me look. I think we said the 12th or 13th or 19th, something like
It
that.
was like the 16th or something.
16th. That's right.
It'll
It'll be an evening stream.
And for the Agan, we're gonna go on Sam Shamoun's channel. Us and Vartan are going on or early July. I think it is July 2nd.
July 3rd.
I think Shamas, we have another stream too. We didn't set a date, but on Binat Qiyama.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, just send me whatever date you want. So
Yeah.
David, if you have any
guys,
ideas,
No, fantastic.
Be
I look
sure
forward.
to tune in, guys, to the Shamoun stream. We're going to be talking about the angel of the Lord. That's a question I've received a lot. What's our position on the angel of the Lord, especially in that controversy sprouted like a couple months ago? Be sure to check that stream. Is going to be me, Sabdikin, Full Armor Apologetics. That's Vartan. So yeah.
And Zibbi, Peter Petros, whatever, that guy who made the stream yesterday about Miaphysitism. Abri, come anytime.
Ubi Petrus. I'm going to respond to that as well.
Zibbi. His name is Zibbi, not Ubi. Zibbi. Put a Z first, then perfect.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, guys, take care, everybody. Like, subscribe, share, pray for us. God bless.
Fantastic.
شمشين